I just never go home. Oh yeah, I remember.
Could you get the light?
Look at that.
All right. Not bad, really. What did you show from 40 grand today? It was a little foggy. So I was late today by, what, 10 minutes? And let's talk about why I was late. Me being late is a phenomenon, right? It's an instance, an occurrence, which we all just shared in an experience. But did it just happen out of nowhere, or were there factors that contributed to my being late?
There were factors.
There were factors. What might some factors have been?
Overslept.
I did not oversleep.
Traffic.
I was up at 5 o'clock. Traffic, good guess. So we could, traffic, car problems. What's that? Okay, that would be a car problem too. Wrong turn and lost and weather. We'll stop there because there are 4 variables there, which we would test to find out what causes people to be late for their appointments. These are 4 variables, and how can we describe, or how can we define what a variable is? By looking at these 4 things. Why are these variables? What does that mean? I can say all day, oh, these are variables. But unless you understand what that means, you know, it just doesn't. What's that?
Yes.
A guess is a hypothesis more of a guess. For example, a hypothesis, a guess would be, and so I understand where you're coming from, because a hypothesis, a guess would be that I was late because there was traffic, yes, there were car problems, yes, I took a wrong turn, and yes, there was inclement bad weather. So that would be a hypothesis that each one of these variables were yes, but we haven't got there yet. First, we have to figure out why these are variables. What does that mean, variable?
There are things that can change. They may be there or may not be there.
Right. So, like the hypothesis was that all these things perhaps were there. Yes, there was bad traffic. Yes, I lost my keys. Yes, I took a wrong turn. Yes, there was bad weather. But it doesn't. There's not always bad weather, right? Like no matter where you live, even in Michigan, at least one day per year is good weather. So that's how that can vary. The weather can be either good or bad, and then we're going to test that, figure out was it good or bad, and then we're going to accumulate that data or record that data, and then we're going to test whether our hypothesis that yes, the weather was bad is accurate. How can traffic vary? It's not a rocket science question, so just tell me, how can traffic vary?
Long foot or you be back up.
Okay.
There could be an accident.
Smooth or backed up due to an accident. And car problems, I locked my keys, or I had full access to a good running vehicle. I took a wrong turn and got lost, or I didn't. because I took a map. How would we describe these variables as defined on the board? How many possible outcomes are there just by what I have written on the board? But don't take it a step further. Just by what's up there, how many outcomes does each of these variables have? 2. There's 2 per variable. Then how many total outcomes for your math majors would be up here on the board? I don't even know. Is that like 2? What is it?
I don't know. It's more than 8 though.
It is.
Yeah. Is there any foundation of it?
Isn't it 16? Let's see, 16. I don't even know how to draw that out. I think it's 16.
Yeah.
Because it would be, what you would have is you have 16 because you would have each of your options here with your opposite option here. This would be smooth traffic. This would be rough traffic. Car problems, yes. Car problems, no. Wrong turn, right turn, good weather, bad weather, and then you just match them up like that. That is poorly drawn, and that's inaccurate because if you follow my logic, you would then be able to have good and bad weather, which you can't. So this is not drawn properly. But this is not the lesson. This is just the preference. So bad job by me on the butt. Now, how are we going to acquire data? This is the lesson for this week, part of it. So this is the primer for this week's lesson. How are we going to acquire data to find out any of this is actually matches our guess? Yes, both. We're going to do an experiment by asking questions. The method would be you either survey me or interview me. Which do you think is better?
Interview.
Interview. Why? Because if you surveyed me, you could just ask me each of these 4 questions, have me mark it down, and I give you back the survey, and then you have your data. So why is interview better in this situation? What's that? That's totally right. It goes more in depth. Because if you give me a survey with these 4 questions and I give it back to you, what can you tell me with that information if you had a survey? What would you be able to tell me with the survey results?
That yeah, traffic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Car problems and yeah, you took that cost, but not anything else.
Right, but you want to go more in depth because I tell you what, if you gave me a survey, I could say no to all of these. Yeah, and then you'd be like, I still don't know why I was late. Like that wouldn't help you get anywhere to solving your problem. Right, so let's go and ask me some questions about each of these 4 variables, and I'll give you a response.
How was the weather? Was it raining?
Okay, I'm actually glad that you did that both of those ways. She asked first, how was the weather? And then stopped herself and said, was it raining? Before I answer, I just want someone to give me your opinion. Which of those is a better question for our purpose? Right, yeah. Because if you ask open-ended questions, yeah. If you say, was it raining? Right, and there's 2 problems with that, was it raining? Because first of all, you're going to get a yes or a no. Second of all, and especially today, I don't even really know if it was raining. Because of sprinkling, right? So if you ask me, was it raining? I'd just be like, I'd get frustrated right off the bat. I don't even know. What do you want me to say? It's like what do you want me to say? I don't know. Yeah, whatever. It was raining. That's not a good response. But if you ask me how's the weather, I would say there was some crazy fog. It was ridiculous fog. And I would say the fog started at Port Huron and it continued all the way to basically the beach or 2. So I would give you that. That would be my response. Not only would I tell you about the weather, but the duration of the bad weather and the type of weather. And then ask me about car problem. Give me a question about car problem.
Did you ever look at that?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, it would be a better worded question if it was more open-ended, right? Something like that. But you hit the nail on the head too. It's great because I didn't lock my keys in the car. I had full access to my car. But yeah, I needed to stop for gas. So that was a great question. Yeah, I stopped in Davidson for gas, and I also got a sandwich while I was there. So went inside and a drink and some Fritos. Poor choice. Okay, so somebody asked me about if I got lost.
Did you find your way already?
Yeah, same way as normal. Yeah, totally found it. Not a problem. One girl stopped at the stoplight, or at the stop sign. She didn't realize that she had the right of way, so I stood there for like a minute. And there was an ambulance. So other than that, I totally took my same route. So in that response, I actually gave you some information about the traffic, which you ask open-ended questions and you go into depth, you're going to get more answers, and even callbacks. And then, ask me about the weather already? Sure. So now, of all the things that I just said, somebody wrap it up and give me a conclusion about why I was late today.
You were late today because there was heavy fog and you had to stop and get gas.
Can you make broader inferences about my behavior for the general public?
Your time management. Like I said, I mean, like I'm saying, you have time management things that could be like pick up black.
Well, I'm glad you said that. And if this was your final paper, I would say not such a good broad inference. Because we didn't, I mean, in a way it's okay because you kind of took it to another topic. And we hadn't, I understand where you're coming from, but we hadn't really set this up as like a time management study. It's more like a driving study and being a late or something like that. So we didn't really talk about time management. It would be okay to do that if you had defined it right off the bat. Like right when he said yes, we would have said, my guess is you're a bad time manager. But we just hadn't gone there yet. So try again and try to make broader inferences about the general public with what we learned from my driving.
You mean like the weather is bad because it's fog from...
Nope. Somebody else, no? Or you can guess again.
No, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Well, I don't know, we'll learn.
People are often late because of weather.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. People, and you might say even Michigan drivers, because the weather in Michigan sometimes is worse than in other states, perhaps, or something. So the jump we made there to make broader inferences was my behavior, and then we looked at what type of person I was, and I just said a Michigan driver. You could also say guys that drive 2 hours, professors that drive 2 hours to their teacher night classes, or something like that. We expand out my point and we say those types of drivers are likely to be late in situations where there are bad weather and they need to get gas. So what we've done is we've taken the sample size, which is a bad sample, it's 1, it's me, and we tried to expand that to make broader inferences, not about the behavior necessarily, but more about the population of whom I represent. So we didn't necessarily expand the topic, but more the people that it affects. And that's what we do in sociology, okay? As a microcosm, what we have is we have an experience here, we had tested variables, we had a hypothesis, then we came to a conclusion about our study, which was me, and then we try to make broader inferences about sort of multiplied means. And that's an important thing to note, and we'll talk about sample later on in the semester, but when you make broader inferences about multiplying me, it's important to clearly define who that means. Because a lot of times Many times in your studies, if you start talking about marriage, or in your first papers that I read, you talk about, a lot of times students will say society, or nowadays, or today in the world, all the people are this, want to get married, or something like that. You can't really say that all the people in the world want to get married, or marriage is even normal on Earth, because it's possible that, I haven't checked the numbers lately, but maybe more people on Earth don't want to get married, or cultures in whatever foreign lands, don't. So if you're talking about United States, you definitely have to nail it right down and say United States, and talk specifically about your population and your sample size, and your topic, and your variables, and your method of study, which was interview, and the type of data that you acquire, which in this case was qualitative. And so that was sort of a mini study, okay? And actually that is a actual study that you could do. Don't do it on my driving tonight or anything, but that's a sociological topic, believe it or not. Commuting distance. A good study that I'm sure you can find are how happy are people that commute more or less to work. Like you might find, my assumption is you could find studies that say drivers who commute farther are more likely to be less happy, more agitated at work if they have a longer commute. These are the types of studies that sociologists do. So if you ever hear on the news, like a study just showed that drivers who lock their keys in their car are always late. That was done by a sociologist probably. Talking about behavior and patterns of behavior. So that's the type of study that you could do in this class. That would be kind of a fun one. But I don't want you to stray too much from your Essay 1 topics. I read them all, and they were very good. Just a couple points to make. Whenever you're writing, don't write in the second person using the word you, Y-O-U. So you don't want to say you, okay? You don't want to use absolutes, and I tend to do this on accident quite a bit. Absolutes are, who knows what an absolute is? I actually made that comment on several of your papers, so if you read the comments, you'll know.
Like never, always.
Never, always, you say everybody. Yeah. So if you say everybody wants to get married, or people in America now are always going to fast food. No, they're not. We're not always going to fast food. We're not at fast food right now. So that's not always, that's infinite. It's impossible. But regularly, or predominantly, or the majority, or it's normal, or that sort of thing. So don't write in second person. Try not to speak in absolutes. Write your name on your paper. Yeah, always write your name on your paper. And use APA format, which you haven't really learned yet, but try to get in the habit of using APA format. And other than that, I think I gave everyone a 50 who did the assignment. One person needs to talk to me, but that person still has the opportunity to get a 50 if they just make some adjustments.
So when you say use APA format, do you want to use a cover page?
Yeah, we'll talk more about it later in the semester. I'm going to show you exactly how I want it. At this point in the semester, I'd encourage you, on top of all the reading you're doing, to just Google APA OWL Purdue, APA format Purdue. It'll get you right to the site. Or just Google APA format. Just start to kind of get a sense of what it means. Because several of you actually used sources, which was kind of cool to see. And none of them were in APA format, but you didn't learn that yet, right? So that's good. We need to learn stuff in this class. If you already knew everything, you wouldn't be here to learn something. So that's good. I feel better knowing that I'm going to teach you some stuff.
What all are you reading?
Your book or articles that I handed out were articles related to your topic. I think I'm going to encourage you to get an article at the end of tonight's lecture when I tell you about SAT. So what I want you to read is, if you have a book, read the book. If you turn the book back, get some articles related to your topic. I already went over how to get the articles, but I'll continue to do that throughout the semester. I'd be more than happy to find you articles and just email them to you, or you go to the library and demand that they give you an article. That's your job, man. Pay your salary.
You want to change your topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And now's the time. What I always say is it's a bad idea to change after a midterm. You want it, definitely. The midterm's big. It's a hard, long assignment. You'll all do fine because I'll tell you how to do it, but it is work. After you put all that work in that midterm, you don't want to change. Because you want to use your midterm. All of these assignments build up to the final. So if you write a 6-page midterm, you don't want to throw it away, right? You want to keep it.
So when you say that, like, and because I am not ready to know about like the final stuff yet, but like, well, like this first essay would be like the first page of our paper. Is that like how easily like it can flow together, or like you might pull stuff out of it?
I'll say revise it, and I'm going to show you how to revise it. Consider it the first draft of your first page, because I just don't feel you're skilled enough to write a first page at this point, so I'll have you revise it. It's the content, the subject matter could be okay. We definitely have to revise. You'll see by the end of the semester, it's not worth going in your final project. It's just not good enough. It'll be way better by then. Your midterm, though, we'll talk about like that can almost transfer directly over. By halfway through this semester, I feel you should be at a point that you should be writing your final paper, which is the midterm is hard. But not so early. You could put it in there, but that would be cool.
So the midterm is 6 pages, start with articles.
Yeah, that's the length of the midterm. 6 pages. Plus a bibliography, so it's 7 pages to midterm. But I'll tell you exactly how to write it. And that's one of the problems with students who do poorly in my class. As I said, a lot of times it's an A or an F. Like, I will tell you exactly how to do the midterm. Somebody will turn in the midterm, I have no idea where they even got the idea to write it from. I almost think that it's something that somebody else wrote for another class. I'm just like, why would you do this? Like, I'll tell you exactly how to, like, to the sentence, I'll be like, write this on your paper. And then you do that, you turn it, and you get an A. I'm going to teach you how to do it. You're going to do it. That's all. So right now, when you feel confused about the assignments, that's okay. That's where you're supposed to be. If you're confused about the midterm, after you see how I tell you how to do it, then we should have a talk. Because I'm going to say, do this, that, this, that, this, that. It'll be fine. It is work. I mean, 6 pages. Yeah. It's work. Right now, we're in the absorption part of the semester. Midterms on, get down to work. You know? Knock it out. Okay, but when you said you're not ready for the final, now, usually I don't even touch on the final as far as like preparation until the midterm. I'll sort of do. But I have changed my style up for this semester, for this class, because I learn every semester how to adjust. And some students will say, I wish I had known about this earlier, so I'm trying to put some of that stuff in more. That's what I'm going to do with tonight, how I end tonight. Yeah, and essay number 2. It's going to be a little bit different than I normally do it, because I want you to get more out of tonight than past semesters have. They've enjoyed tonight, but I need to get more out of it. So hopefully my changes will be good. We talked about perspective. We talked about your perceptions and your experience and how that should drive and motivate your topic for your paper. I call this presentation what's in a theory, but it could be also lens into method, because what you do with your final paper and with the semester, because the semester is just one big final paper, is you start with your perspective, but then you kind of figure out how to test it. That's why I started with this little corny example about my driving. So we have all this guess, this assumption, this hypothesis, but then we need to test it. So when we think about what's in a theory, how do we come up with our theories? Where do we get, this is a callback to past weeks, where do we come up with our world views? I've already said it.
Like our religion.
Sure, and our religion and our education is what part of our life? Yeah, what else? our upbringing, and how would you define your upbringing? Something that you lived,
Your past experience.
experiences, yeah. And your experiences and your upbringing is part of the substance and the meat that makes up your experience. So a theory doesn't just come out of thin air, right? You don't just like walk around like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I just came up with this theory about Care Bears running the world. No, that doesn't make any sense. But people will have theories like people that commute long distances are more agitated and angry. And their theory came because they experienced some coworker that came to work agitated and angry for like 2 hours a day. So theory comes from facts. It comes out of some experiences that we've had. And all of our experiences aggregated, we'll call that data. That's hard to think about, but consider your experience as data, right? You're like little human mini computers. We've talked about social interaction in past weeks. And remember, when you go into a McDonald's, you are making computations, right? You are trying to figure out where to stand in line. You're already figuring out like how long you're going to wait in line. You've already kind of figured out if you're going to do drive-through or if you're going to sit down. You figured out if you're going to be nice. And this is subconscious decisions. You've figured out if you're going to be nice or rude to the cashier. You've looked at the menu. You've already computed that there is a menu at McDonald's. And you've also computed like, am I going to order the same thing that I always do or different? So you made all of these choices and decisions and computation. Again, not on a thing. You didn't walk in and go, where's the Care Bears? No, right? You're like, where's the burgers? Where's the beef? And how did you come to those conclusions or computations? Process data. Your brain has stored data of your experiences. So now we think of our experiences as data. Have you ever thought of it like that before? Not philosophy fest, but feeling philosophical. So your experience is data. And your experiences in life are mostly made up of what? This sort of thing, right? Like when you say, how are you going to find out why I was late? You basically said, I'm just going to talk to you, right? And what have we been doing since we were 2 years old? Just been talking to each other. And every word that we've heard, whether on TV or from our mom, is data. So now we know all of our theories and our worldviews and our perspectives are formed through data, so we can just stop there, right? Of course, it's much too early. So we have to discuss the chicken before the egg argument. What's the chicken before the egg argument? Which came first? When we're trying to make computations or we're trying to come to a conclusion about how the world works, how the social world works, we can either start with our theory that's in our head, or we can start with a method such as interviewing, or we can start with data, just raw numbers. So think about that for a second. I can either, say you're going to start, we're talking about studies, right? We're talking about sociological, scientific studies. There's three things right here: a perspective, a worldview, a theory. A method, like interviews, or like we did last week when we wrote down content analysis for the MLK speech. Or data, like a sheet of numbers. So if you're going to start your study right now, which one would you want first? You can have anything you want from me, and you're like, I'm going to do my study. But I want data. Then I would hand you a spreadsheet of numbers. Males are more likely to be higher wage earners. Females are more likely to be nurses. Murder victims in Flint are more likely to be African American. The incarceration rates are higher for African Americans. These sorts of things that kind of thrown out already. There's your data sheet. Okay, so I give that to you. Start your study. Or you can say, Gerben, give me a method. And I'll go, oh, I love this method called ethnography. It's participant observation. I'm going to tell you how to video record somebody, watch it back, do the content analysis of the words like we did in the MLK speech, and that's your method, your ethnography and content analysis mixed method of each of them. Or Bird would give me a theory, and I'll say, the theory is social interaction theory, where the world is filled of social actors, and you're my audience, and I'm the actor, and everything I'm doing, my behavior, all because I'm putting on a performance for you. You are receiving my performance, but in turn you're returning it with your own performance. So I'm your audience. We're going to talk about the social interaction. So which one of these three things, my theory, my data, or my method, would you want first for your study? There's no wrong answer. You want to start with your perspective? That's a good one. That's the one at the top. That's the one that you'll start your final paper with. That's the one that I teach chronologically. That's how I teach this semester. Start with your perspective. What does anyone have any other? Did you start any other way? Everyone wants to start that. You want to start a different one?
Oh, no, I just said that.
I think like mine started as method.
Did you say that will always be last? As it comes through your method? Somebody say?
I think that like mine or started as like
Then what method do you like? Okay, so participant observation. And you're like I love doing that. So I'm going to try to develop a study based off of that. What if I was like, okay, can you find death rates of diabetics? And it doesn't fit your method, right? So you start with your method, but you have also in mind what you're going to study. You just don't have a theory yet. You start that way. Okay. I pulled this from the, what was a book? Yeah. A qualitative method that I used for this presentation, where we have the philosophy or the perspective theory, overlapping with the methodology, overlapping with the methods. And this is one view of research design. And this kind of also indicates components and states, but it also shows how it's not chronological or it's not sequential in this person's approach to a scientific study. Because some people will look at scientific studies as you were saying earlier, that you have to do your method and then collect your data. But other times, you might actually have some data, some second source data, statistical data that you got from the U.S. Census. And then you're also going to do a participant observation, so you're going to do a mix. So you actually have some data, now you're going to do a method, you're going to get more data, and you're going to put it together. So it's sometimes blended, it's not always sequential. But the choice is really yours. You can do it in any way you want. You can do a strict sequence, you can do it blended, or you can start with your perspective, which many of you probably want to, makes sense, or you can start with the method. So our own friends, quantitative and qualitative data. Quantitative, as you recall, are numbers. So in a quantitative study, you might start with numbers, then make some calculations, and then figure out what your conclusion is. So you would start with the data, crunch the numbers, and then figure out that, well, people that drive slow get to their destination later, right? The numbers are miles per hour, multiply it all together, equals people arrive late. So we started with our numbers, we made some calculations, then we drew a conclusion from that. And that's a lot of times how a quantitative study will go. Qualitative, you start with your data or you start with the observation? You start with the observation and you get the data, okay? At what point does your theory come in? At what point in your participant observation does your perspective come into play? After you observe?
No, you have to perform. Or am I just leaving it in the middle?
So he has after, before, and middle. And the answer is all three of you are right. All three are right. If you develop, you said after, if you develop your theory after you do your study, you would develop that. It's called the grounded theory. If you go in with your theory beforehand, then you're not doing grounded theory. You go in with your theory and say, my theory is this, now I'm going to go watch some people, then I'm going to make a conclusion. But
like I would have a theory,
yeah,
and then have like a hypothesis, right, of
right.
what I think,
yeah,
and then I'll do my research and my data collection,
yep,
and then have a conclusion.
Sure. But a grounded theory is you go and you just really start watching people with your subject data in mind, but you really don't know so much what your theory is.
Because if I don't like if you observe and then create a theory like beforehand, it would be more persuasive, like to see what you want to see, be observed.
Those are wise words, and you might enjoy like a feminist theory, because like a feminist theory is this concept very basically that we can't escape ourselves, our bodies. I can't escape my male. I can't escape my whiteness. I can't escape my middle class. I can't escape my Michigan roots. I can't. But I can't like. I mean,
Your lifestyle.
I can't get out. I don't know anything other than white male middle class from Michigan. I don't know anything. I can't. I don't know female. I can't. My brain. I'm not a female brain. I don't know black. I can't. No matter how much hip hop I listen to or whatever, like whatever joke you want to say, like I cannot know black, right? And I can't know you. Even if you were a white guy, I still couldn't know you because wherever you live, whatever your experience. So feminist theory says like we can't escape ourselves. And so we start with observation, because if we try to go in with the theory, it would be our theory. Let's go in blind, let's try to develop a theory out of it. That might be a more pure theory, or it might not. Scientifically, you might want to go in with a theory and test it. That's science, right?
Right.
I'm going to test a hypothesis. I think this, and I'm going to prove it or disprove it. Well, we can't prove or disprove anything here. We can only support or negate. But again, neither of these are wrong. Both of these are right. So there's no wrong answers in this class. You can do it however you want. You do have to use the right words, though. If you go in first with the observation and then you build up theory from that, that's a grounded theory. My personal thing, I like to do grounded theory because I'm not a scientist. I did bad in chemistry. I mean, I'm in a social science, but I like to watch people and then come to conclusions. Right? I'm trying my hardest to understand the other person. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to come up with theories from my observation. We can do it in the middle.
And you could do both. I mean, like not on your paper, but you could do both essentially, depending on what you want.
You can do both on your paper. Okay. Grounded theory is really interesting because it's not a theory, right? We talk about social interaction theory, conflict theory, game theory, all these theories, whatever. You could also do grounded theory. But grounded theory is not a theory. It's the process of coming through. So if you're doing qualitative, you just have to ask yourself, do you start with data, or do you start with observation, do you start with your theory, or do you come in with the theory at the end, beginning, middle, where? If you come to your theory at the end, it would be a grounded theory. This is your vocab square here. Qualitative is more flexible. Quantitative, probably going to state it's more of a mathematical equation, it's more of a science experiment. You start with your theory, you give your numbers, you make your calculations, you come to a conclusion. If we start talking about those philosophical things, I'll just go for that. You would not understand anything I was saying, nor would I. I'd have to watch the tape.
So you would do, for the concept, you would do theory, give numbers, give support, and then give conclusion?
Yeah. We'll go more in depth in the rest of the semester. There's a couple other steps in there, but yeah. That'd be a very sequential, way of going about it, and would be totally correct. What type of phenomenon does each focus on? If you're doing quantitative, you might be studying cancer rates, or diabetes rates, mortality rates, which is how often people die, right? Birth defect rates, birth rates, population, migration patterns. If you're crunching numbers, that's quantitative. And those are the types of studies that quantitative researchers would do. Okay.
And then divorce rate.
Yeah, divorce rates. Any type of rate. If you're going to ask me a question about what I think about divorce, why did I get divorced? Why did I get married in the first place? I read something this week. Why do people get married to get divorced? We have that conversation. That's not a rate. We doing a politics. If you're just like 50,000 African Americans got divorced, 50,000 Caucasians got divorced last year, so the rates are equal. It doesn't matter what race you are, what's rates. Straight numbers. That's a great.
So that's why you could have both in your paper. Like, you can do qualitative.
Yeah, you could definitely do both.
You could do
So-
quantitative.
Be a mixed methods paper. Stronger paper.
Let me ask you now, divorce rates, if you wanna, like, if I wanted to do just Hispanics, or you want it on all
It's up to
divorce
you.
rates?
It's whatever you want to find out. You can do divorce rates of former priests, bro. Whatever you want to do. Divorce rates of dogs, whatever.
It's a lot, yeah.
I tell you, one of my peers did a study on dog racism before.
Really?
Totally true. And which dog is the most discriminated against racially?
And what was that?
You all know what it is. Dibble.
Really?
Yeah.
She has theories about dog racism, that pit bulls are discriminated. You can write papers on that. That's why Southern is the best. It's real. It's so much fun. Okay, so divorce rates. If you ask me, am I divorced, and I say no, that's a rate, 0%. You ask me why, that's qualitative. Because you can do a mixed method, it's going to be stronger. I love qualitative. I like talking to people. I like asking questions. I like videotaping people, observing them. So if you're talking about a qualitative study, here are some of the types of things that you could write about. And these are literally, for both columns, the first things that came to my head. So this is not in any way, shape, or form an exhaustive list. This is not like the list. I did not pull this from a book. I was just like, what types of stuff did you study for book? And in fact, I was studying leadership in military and sports and behavior at the time. So I'm in my qualitative. So now that you understand quantitative data as numbers, and you understand that a rate is a number, and kind of get, hey, it's numbers, I get it. Half the people are this, 3/4 of that. That's a number, that's a rate, that's quantitative data. Let's talk about qualitative in this column. And I want you to explain to me a little bit about, I don't care, pick one of those, and just tell me how that presents itself as qualitative data. Why I can't study leadership, or I could, if I could, how? Quantitatively. Why would you study leadership qualitatively, not quantitatively? Can you give me a little bit on that?
Leadership requires sports. I'd say like requires how do you say that?
Quantitative.
It's just like how many, like when they prepare quarterbacks or whatever, like going into a football game, throw so many interceptions to fail versus touchdown. Leadership requires qualitative.
It's harder to measure, isn't it? That's the whole point. It's your pause right there. It's hard. You can't quantify it. You can't measure leadership. You touchdowns. You just can't. And that's why it falls in this category. I mean, if you want to say leadership means wins, then you can quantify it. But leadership doesn't. Wins mean wins. So you can't necessarily measure leadership. I'm 6 foot tall, I weigh 180 pounds. You can measure. I'm the leader of this class. Can you put a measure on that? Yeah, there's no equation in leadership. I mean, crazy sociologist for sure would give equation. Just a statistician, but I don't know if they're papers. Okay, so we talked a little bit about leadership. I know some people in our military, some are sports. Anybody interested in politics? How would we, voting, when I wrote this one, I knew this one, I was putting it down. Voting, you can measure that, right? So why did I put voting here and not here? Yes, you think it's all about numbers. You think you should be over there. Why would I put it on this side? You could still use numbers. I say, 80% of black people voted for Obama and only 20% of white people. Why they voted? Why they voted? What did I say? Twice? Yeah. So you just gotta ask them, like, you show them an advertisement, and you say, okay, does this advertisement make you want to vote for Obama or not? And then, they say, oh yeah, it totally does. And you say, why? Why is it so persuasive? Oh, because he showed his daughters. And then, it's like all these people would say, because he showed his daughters. And you'd be like, oh, to persuade the white people, you have to show daughters in the background, or whatever it is. And then you show another, but all the black people say, it's because he looks so serious or something. I'm just totally making something. Say, okay, to persuade the black voters, he has to look serious. This is actually how they develop their advertisements. Is they do focus groups. A focus group is a thing that you could do for a method, is a focus group. So you would figure out how to influence and how you can influence votes. So if I just gave you some voting numbers, and I said, well, 80% of blacks voted for Obama, 20% of whites. You go, thanks for the numbers, Gerber, that's awesome. What does that even tell us? Let's go ask people questions about why they voted and how they were influenced to vote. Okay? And I think that's more important than solid numbers. If I gave you an 80%, 20%, what does that mean? Nothing. Me, do a different grade, do statistics. People do statistics way better than me. It's totally viable, but for some of these things, I just think we need qualitative analysis. What's that?
Yeah, that's what it's very, yeah, and like.
So,
What did most of your studies be both though?
No, most of them are quantitative. Why?
Because you did numbers are easier.
It's easier to measure stuff out, but there are statistics actually are too hard for me. I don't like stats. I just took it to pass it, but I think you just get more credibility if you're like, hey, 75% of the people did this. And everybody reads and goes, okay, I get it. Numbers, I understand.
And then you use
But see that, I don't know, could it see it be more like, why did they do that? Great, 75% did that, or why would they do that?
And it depends on what you're studying. And I use cancer a lot because you could study cancer rates statistically, and you could say, 85% of the people that live near this factory got lung cancer. So factory smoke causes lung cancer or something like that. So you could do it with stats, but or you could go and you could discover, oh, they were all drinking Diet Coke and smoking cigarettes. So if I watched their behavior, if I just observed what they're doing, everybody's smoking cigarettes. But my stats told me it was because they lived near the factory. My observations told me it's because they smoked cigarettes and drank Diet Coke. Sometimes the mixed method's going to be better in that situation. So it's up to you. It's going to depend on what your study is. Oh, Obama makes another appearance. Where do we get our leaders? I was studying leadership this weekend. I was doing my sports things, trying to figure out how we get leaders, and maybe it's in wins. We can measure leadership in wins. Obama won twice in a row. Maybe he's a better leader than who only won once. I don't know. I don't even know if that's it. So they're equivalent leaders, if you base it on win. Right? Lazarus, well, sociologist, qualitative, distinguishes elected leader as having influence that is culturally certified. When the group gives the leader the right to influence them. So you could quantify leadership in number of wins or victories, or you could qualify it as being culturally certified, something that doesn't seem like it can be measured. You can measure Obama's cultural certification, I guess, in votes, or his support and confidence numbers. What other ways can we describe Obama as a leader who is culturally certified? Give me some ideas. What does it mean to be culturally certified?
That you're the culture, like values you or.
They value and they validate you, but how? How so? What are some exemplifications? What are some instances of that? I can think of
To
two.
your campaign or you.
Attendance.
Yeah.
Yes, great, attendance. So I'm thinking of a concert. If I think that I am a rock star, I'm a rap guy, man, I can, seriously, when I have a studio at home, that's true, and I just go on rap like crazy. So I'm like the best rapper ever. And I throw a concert at, what's this called, Dow, right? Right? And I go up on stage, ladies and gentlemen, MC Erwood. Yeah, and I walk out. Nobody's there, right? So have I been culturally certified? No. So also when I come to concert, if I somehow tricked everybody, persuaded people, propaganda that I'm awesome. And yeah. So I am Eminem 10, 12 years ago. So he's this guy from Detroit, blah blah. And a lot of people was cool, whatever. But then what does he put out? His album is what? Produced by Beats headphones. Why do I think those are cool? Beats headphones by. So as soon as he brings somebody else with cultural as a partner, then he's cultural certified. So if I'm at my concert, and somehow I persuaded and tricked all these people to come. I paid you guys off, you all showed up. And I walk out on the stage and I start rapping. You guys are just like, what's going on? And, you're not cheering. Applause would be a cultural certification. But then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, ladies and gentlemen, Kid Rock. And then everyone's like, yeah, oh my gosh. And then Kid Rock comes out, and I've been called out. That's right. Everybody likes me. And I'm on the cover of Rolling Stone. It'd be great. So those are ways that we can be culturally certified. Applause, attendance is voting. Voting means applause is recognition. And then pairing up with somebody who already has the credibility. Our ways. So good job on that. I guess so. Sanford. Sociologist Lazarus spelled two foundations for those thoughts. One. There are no generally identifiable leadership traits. Two, leadership traits vary by situation. Now, if I think about my concert again, and if I promoted this as that I was gonna come and do a hip hop show, and my opening act was 2 Chainz and Public Enemy, and I walk out and it's like, okay, I'll do my show, and everybody's like, yeah. And all of a sudden I start playing Taylor Swift songs on guitar. What am I gonna get? Boo. Well, that's okay. And what if I was put on a show with 2 Chainz again and Public Enemy, and actually I brought out Taylor Swift and started playing Taylor Swift songs and do that when it was supposed to be a hip hop show? What am I going to get then?
Cheers.
And I'd probably get booed. If I was like supposed to be a 2 Chainz show and out comes Taylor Swift,
Up to you, years, but if they don't see 2 Chainz later on in that show.
Okay, here's an even better one. Not just Taylor
So
Swift,
they
but
might think you're gonna bring 2 Chainz out with Taylor Swift, so they might go along with it for a minute.
So I'm gonna take it a step.
That,
they revolt.
right.
So I'll take it a step further. Okay, instead of even Taylor Swift, I bring out somebody virtuoso violinist nobody's ever heard of, but is the best violinist in the world.
It really depends on the audience and how much they like music. I mean, because even if you into the music, you could.
So let's do it back again. It depends on the audience.
Yeah.
Varies by situation.
Yeah.
So let's do it in backwards, okay? So I like to go. I've seen Lil Wayne, but I don't like it. But anyways, I went there, and it was all like Lil Wayne, you know, at the Pine Knob, right? So people enjoy a Lil Wayne concert. Now, the backwards of what the situation I just presented were Taylor Swift. So I bring Lil Wayne to a symphony orchestra concert. It was supposed to be a symphony orchestra concert at whatever auditorium you guys have here. And it's supposed to be the violinist, and it's a bunch of country club people, and I bring out Lil Wayne. And I'm like,
Oh, crazy. Yo, crazy.
they were not like, refund. So we're like, I was at Pine Knob last year, and it was like, oh, so fun. If I took Lil Wayne to that auditorium, they would not like it. Leadership, where some people love Lil Wayne, other people can't stand him. Leadership traits vary by situation. You mentioned the quarterback thing. Sometimes the running quarterback doesn't translate to a drop back passing scheme. Okay? Sometimes Jamarcus Russell is really good in college, comes to the NFL, doesn't do so well. These leadership traits vary by situation. So another thing about qualitative research is that with numbers, you can just crank out calculations. With qualitative analysis, we're talking about things that we're talking about so much that we need to really go through situation. We need to watch participants, right?
As far as like leadership traits, like you really think like depending on where a person is drafted, which team, and what type of leader they're going to be.
That it goes into the equation. It's not the end all be all, but just like this, there are 4 variables. In the NFL draft, there's definitely variables. And the type of quarterback, the win score, the size, and the race is going to come into play. You know, you got some old dudes running those teams that still have remnants of racism in the back of their heads. You still want. Not only are they, maybe they're not blatant racists, but also market. You know, like a black quarterback might sell very well for the LA Raiders or the Brooklyn Nets or whatever. But in another market, right, exactly right. Yeah. So there's a lot of factors. Now, you look on the surface and some people will say, you listen to sports talk, they're not social scientists. They will say it's all just a race, or it's all just it's not. A bunch of factors that can. Okay, so taking sides, we talk about Obama and Lil Wayne. Either you think that there are general leadership traits that apply to all situations, and you think Obama has charisma, Lil Wayne has charisma, and Taylor Swift has charisma. And then there is this universal leadership trait called charisma, that if you have charisma, you will be a leader in all situations. Maybe you're in that camp. Or maybe you think that leadership traits really depend on the situation.
I say,
So you think that Obama could go lead a Ku Klux Klan rally? Probably. He can do that, could he?
yeah.
You really think they're gonna let him come back? I mean, good leaders was a lot of probably. Will he be allowed to?
But that's true. Like some people lead in certain areas, and I can be a leader.
Situation.
Yeah, I'm a nurse, and I think best on my team, and that's like in a bad situation. But I couldn't
You can
leave,
be put in a nursing home and can run the floor,
right,
but you can't.
but I couldn't leave like
A warehouse.
a warehouse or, yeah, I mean, like, I have to know. I think so, it depends on the situation. And it depends on who, like, you know, Lil Wayne, like, only has followers that wanna follow him. Like, I don't follow him, like, I don't find him charismatic, you know, I don't find him, you know. So I mean, I think it's all variable.
And it depends on the situation because, I mean, you look at Jay-Z. He's a rapper, but he also a businessman. You know, so he can go out on stage and say whatever, but he want a boardroom and WWE. You know, I guess it depends. Lil Wayne just he's just different.
Yeah.
He's different. You know, I mean, you look at it, he come in the boardroom, all tattoos all on his face. You know, first thing you gonna think, you know,
And
and you
then
really take him serious.
And there's a different type of leader in the hip hop community, which is some people, they just copy everybody's styles and stuff, and some people are really unique.
Yeah.
Those cutting edge
very
people.
unique in his own way, but I mean, it's your presence too. You know, I mean, how you present yourself.
Now,
Your body can be tattooed up and people don't have to know it. You know.
so this is cultural relativism, and this conversation was great because I didn't even have cultural relativism as like the theory of my whole presentation. But when we get to this point, we've really just discussed cultural relativism. That's a theory. So if you want to base your paper on cultural relativism, whether it's in the nursing field or sports field or something like that, by all means base it off cultural relativism. That's a great theory to base your papers off. Cultural relativism meaning it's relative what culture you're in, whether or not, in just one instance, you're a leader. Other cultural relativist type of things are like, and I'll just do the blatant, you know, obvious to me ones. It's like cultural relativism in some cultures, you know, polygamy is the best thing in the world. And in other cultures, polygamy is like, that's disgusting. In some cultures, like, having sex with like 2-year-olds is probably okay. In our culture, it's like, that's disgusting. So this is cultural relativism. It's the same thing if you think about it, that Lil Wayne's gonna do well on a concert stage, but not in a orchestra. An orchestra person's gonna do well in an orchestra, but not in a rap concert. It's the same thing with these really crazy ideas of gender and sexuality or power and relations like that. So that's cultural relativism to the extreme. It's like, you know, in our society, murder, of course, is bad. In other societies, murder is maybe good. I don't know. But I don't think too many of you here are studying like global anthropology. Just know that cultural relativism is what we were talking about. And you just learn something unintentionally. How great. It's just a beautiful thing. Okay, I think we're doing well on time. Can you turn on the back light? So what we're going to do is a little exercise. And for our exercise, it's mostly field trip. And so when we do this, it's just a preface, you're going to need to pack up your things because we're going to be leaving the class unless you don't have anything valuable or whatever. People steal stuff from the class. I don't know. It's not my fault if you leave something here and it gets stolen. We will be leaving. We need 4 groups for the class exercise. First group, come to the front. You can grab your stuff too when you come. Come up here.
How many papers will you do?
There's going to be 4 groups, so 5 or 6 to do. I just need you to stand up here. One trait of leadership is that your followers do what you say. Right? I have this trait as a leader where I'm like come to the front and people come to the front. The power.
Mine is like a full right now.
That's up to you. Okay, now just go there. I just want to be up here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're good. We're good on this. Okay, so for group number 1, what I want you to do is, and remember, connect the dots here. I'm not just doing this to do this, right? This is this is a learning activity. So, what one of your methods, I think it was you want to do participant observation. You know, I love participant observation. So when we observe people, what do we observe about them? Their behavior and their actions, right? So do I just stand, when I'm trying to figure out if you guys are bored, how do I figure that out? Show me bored.
Like seeing the expression on their face,
Yeah,
their movement.
you look bored, yeah. Some people sleep in the class, right? They're bored. Okay, so just to, you know, give the class an example, so if I was going to look at you and be like, are these people angry? Show me angry.
It's gotta be hard to do on the spot.
Okay. I think that was a little embarrassing, perhaps. You want to show me a little anger?
Me?
This is your group's job. Yeah, this is your only job. Don't throw Naive at me.
I can't look at my dad in his face and just be like, try to like.
Okay, okay.
Roll your eyes.
Show me nervous. Show me nervous. What about cool? Show me cool.
We are just cool.
Cool. And if you were embarrassed, how could I tell based on color? Right. And if you were nervous under a spotlight because I was cross-examining you for a big theft murder, what would your face, besides being red, you would sweat. Okay. And if you were nervous, you might bite your name, so clearly you're from. If you were cool, you might want to be. Okay, go wait in the hall. Group 1. That was it. You have the easiest job. It pays to be first. Don't go anywhere. Be out there. Shut the door. We're going to talk about you now. Okay, I need a second group. All right. 2, 3, 4, 5. We got one more up, so we can make these relatively even. Okay, we're good. We're good. Okay, so the next ones will have 5 and 5. Okay. Okay, group 2. Okay, so you're going to do an ethnography. You are going to do a participant observation. We just talked about some of the things that you could observe. If they were nervous, you would write what? Not that they're nervous, you'd write that they were chewing their nails or something.
Not being filled. Right.
Right, and then from that we could deduce that they were nervous.
Yeah.
So you don't just see something. You don't just go nervous. You write shaking hands or whatever. So you're going to observe group 1, okay, and you are going to just take some field notes, okay. So whether you want to record it with the voice recorder on an iPhone, or take video, or write it down, I want you to observe group 1. And we're going to be going to the coffee place. Hopefully it's open till 8. I think it is. And I'll buy group 1 whatever they want at the coffee place. So you're going to start your ethnography by going out and telling them that this is a field trip where we're going to go to the coffee place and I'm going to buy them whatever they want. And you're going to start right there, sort of.
Do we like just pick one person?
A little piece of paper then or something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Key in on 1 people. Since there's 6 of you, 4 of them, some of you will be on the same person or whatever. But What is a key component of ethnography? Do you want to go up and tell them that you're studying them?
No.
Right. You want to be discreet about it. So that's your.
So are we coming back up here?
Yeah. That's all we're doing is going there and coming back. I've done this several times and it occurs different all the time. It's so fun for me to watch. It's like, okay. But it's going normal right now. It's taking some weird turns. Okay. So for example, like, so they just told them that they're gonna get free coffee. The last group I did this with, like, we went down there and nobody got in line to get it. And I just sit there. I thought this was the time where everybody just jumps up like, yeah, free coffee. It's just weird. Okay. So I figured out why. They were confused. Anyways, group 3, could you come to the front? Okay, so what we have are our groups. You two want to go? Let's do that. Well, we have our groups out there, okay? In the first group, they're participants. Second group is observing them. But we're going to have more people in our study. So, like, nobody at this point is observing the people that are observing other people, right? So nobody's observing group 2 yet. But we need people to record information and data on everybody. So your job is not to record group 1, but I want you to record group 2, but also record the coffee shop workers. You get a lot of data from that. When we roll 35 deep or whatever up to the coffee shop, look at the coffee shop workers. Figure out if they're happy or not happy. They usually go either way. Sometimes they're like, what's this? And sometimes they're just like very angry. Just watch them and see how they react. And also, everybody that we encounter here out in the world is in our study. So if we walk by classrooms and you see people are looking at us, record that. So that's your job. Just record everybody else and take field notes and observe everyone else. Okay, that's your job. That would be my response. Not only would I tell you about the weather, but the duration of the bad weather and the type of weather. And then ask me about car problem. Give me a question about car problem.
Did you look at?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, it would be a better worded question if it was more open-ended, right? Something like that. But you hit the nail on the head too. It's great because I didn't lock my keys in the car. I had full access to my car. But yeah, I needed to stop for gas. So that was a great question. Yeah, I stopped in Davidson for gas, and I also got a sandwich while I was there. So went inside and a drink and some Fritos. Poor choice. Okay, so somebody asked me about if I got lost. Yeah, same way as normal. Yeah, totally found it. Not a problem. One girl stopped at the stoplight, or at the stop sign. She didn't realize that she had the right of way, so I stood there for like a minute. And there was an ambulance. But other than that, I totally took my same route. So in that response, I actually gave you some information about the traffic, which you ask open-ended questions and you go into depth, you're going to get more answers, and even callbacks. And then, ask me about the weather already? Sure. So now, of all the things that I just said, somebody wrap it up and give me a conclusion about why I was late today.
You were late today because there was heavy fog. and you had stopping it, yeah.
Can you make broader inferences about my behavior for the general public?
Your time management. Like I said, I mean, like I'm saying you have time management issues, and that could be like big a black.
Well, I'm glad you said that. And if this was your final paper, I would say not such a good broad inference. Because we didn't, I mean, in a way, it's okay. If you surveyed me, you could just ask me each of these 4 questions, have me mark it down, and I give you back the survey, and then you have your data. So why is interview better in this situation? What's that? That's totally right. It goes more in depth. Because if you give me a survey with these 4 questions and I give it back to you, what can you tell me with that information if you had a survey? What would you be able to tell me with the survey results?
Yeah, you start problems, and you just don't that loss, but not
Right, but you want to go more in depth, because I tell you what, if you gave me a survey, I could say no to all of these. Yeah, and then you'd be like, I still don't know why I was late. You know, like that wouldn't help you get anywhere to solving your problem. Right, so let's go and ask me some questions about each of these 4 variables, and I'll give you a response.
How was the weather? Was it raining?
Okay, I'm actually glad that you did that both of those ways. She asked first, how was the weather? And then stopped herself and said, was it raining? Before I answer, I just want someone to give me your opinion. Which of those is a better question for our purposes? Right, yeah. Because if you ask open-ended questions, yeah. If you say, was it raining? Right, and there's 2 problems with that, was it raining? Because first of all, you're going to get a yes or a no. Second of all, and especially today, I don't even really know if it was raining. Because of sprinkling, right? So if you ask me, was it raining? I'd just be like, I'd get frustrated right off the bat. I don't even know. What do you want me to say? It's like what do you want me to say? I don't know. Yeah, whatever. It was raining. That's not a good response. But if you ask me how's the weather, I would say there was some crazy fog. It was ridiculous fog. And I would say the fog started at Port Huron and it continued all the way to basically the beach or two. So what causes people to be late for their appointments? These are 4 variables. And how can we describe, or how can we define what a variable is? By looking at these 4 things. Why are these variables? What does that mean? I can say all day, oh, these are variables. But unless you understand what that means, it just doesn't. What's that? A guess is a hypothesis more of a guess. For example, a hypothesis, a guess would be, and so I understand where you're coming from, because a hypothesis, a guess would be that I was late because there was traffic, yes, there were car problems, yes, I took a wrong turn, and yes, there was inclement bad weather. So that would be a hypothesis that each one of these variables were yes, but we haven't got there yet. First, we have to figure out why these are variables. What does that mean, variable?
There are things that can change. They may be there or may not be there.
Right. So, like the hypothesis was that all these things perhaps were there. Yes, there was bad traffic. Yes, I lost my keys. Yes, I took a wrong turn. Yes, there was bad weather. But there's not always bad weather, right? Like, no matter where you live, even in Michigan, at least one day per year is good weather. So that's how that can vary. The weather can be either good or bad, and then we're going to test that, figure out was it good or bad, and then we're going to accumulate that data or record that data, and then we're going to test whether our hypothesis that yes, the weather was bad is accurate. How can traffic vary? It's not rocket science question. So just tell me, how can traffic vary?
Long foot where you be backed up.
Okay.
There could be an accident.
Smooth or backed up due to an accident. And car problems, I locked my keys, or I had full access to a good running vehicle. I took a wrong turn and got lost.
I just never know.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Could you get the light?
Look at
All right. Not bad, really. What did you drove from Portland today? It was a little foggy. So I was late today by, what, 10 minutes? And let's talk about why I was late. Me being late is a phenomenon, right? It's an instance, an occurrence, which we all just shared in an experience. But did it just happen out of nowhere, or were there factors that contributed to my being late?
There were factors.
There were factors. What might some factors have been?
Overslept.
I did not oversleep.
Traffic.
I was up at 5 o'clock. Traffic, good guess. So we could,
Car problem.
traffic, car problems. What's that? Okay, that would be a car problem too. Wrong turn and lost and weather. We'll stop there because there are 4 variables there, which we would test to find out what or I didn't, because I took a map. How would we describe these variables as defined on the board? How many possible outcomes are there just by what I have written on the board? But don't take it a step further. Just by what's up there, how many outcomes does each of these variables have? 2. There's 2 per variable. Then how many total outcomes for your math majors would be up here on the board? I don't even know. Is that like 2? What is it?
It's more than 8 though.
It is.
Yeah. Is there any combination of them?
Isn't it 16? Let's see, 16. I don't even know how to draw that out. I think it's 16.
Yeah.
Because it would be, what you would have is you'd have 16 because you would have each of your options here with your opposite option here. This would be smooth traffic, this would be rough traffic. Car problems, yes. Car problems, no. Wrong turn, right turn, good weather, bad weather, and then you just, match them up like that. That is poorly drawn, and that's inaccurate, because if you follow my logic, you would then be able to have good and bad weather, which you can't. So this is not drawn properly. But this is not the lesson, this is just the preference. So bad job by me on the butt. Now, how are we going to acquire data? This is the lesson for this week, part of it. So this is the primer for this week's lesson. How are we going to acquire data to find out any of this is actually matches our guess? Yes, both. We're going to do an experiment by asking questions. The method would be you either survey me or interview me. Which do you think is better?
Interview.
Interview. Why? Because